Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about Nuclear War, a scenario by Annie Jacobson. I bought this book because it's in one of those monthly discount lists a few months ago, and I just let it sit there for quite some time because even as a non-fiction, the topic is not really on my high priority of books that I want to read this year. But when I was researching around Dune while I was reading Dune Messiah, I found an online article that said that the director of Dune movie, Denis something, is also going to adapt this book. I decided to raise its placement on my priority list of reading. Who knows, maybe it's as good as the other nuclear bomb movie by Nolan, and my video might finally appear more on people's recommendation. The book opened with a quote from Winston Churchill about war, which I guess makes sense since he's the guy that supported the Balfour Declaration that started a long-lasting war that still happen now. But the guy is dead already anyway, so let's move on to the book itself. The book is a what-if scenario of the future, but it's less of a fiction. What it is a scenario built using non-fictional cases, unclassified documents related to militaries, nuclear weaponry, Cold War, cyber war, etc. And the author also interviewed a ton of people. There are 4 pages of just names and credentials of the interviewees before the book even started. It also just happened to be a great continuation of what happened to our world after Oppenheimer. Since the author is from America, the start of the war is America getting attacked first, which is doubtful with their track record. But let's go with the hypothetical scenario that started with the hypothetical scenario where America is the victim. The first bomb is launched strategically to Pentagon, an explosion of 1 megaton thermonuclear weapon. The core of the explosion reached hundreds of millions of degrees that even without translating it to Celsius still sound absurd in Fahrenheit. It's 4 to 5 times hotter than the temperature of the center of the sun. Then in microseconds, this ball of light superheats its surrounding and expands at millions of kilometers per hour. Just in the first few seconds, it can reach more than 2 kilometers. The heat is so intense that concrete explodes, metal melts, stones shatter, and human just instantaneously turns to char. All 5 floors of the Pentagon in all 5 sites turns into dust, killing all 27,000 employees inside of it. That's ground zero of the explosion, where it just started. The flame continued to burn out 2.5 kilometers area of cemetery northwest of Pentagon, every building and bridges across the Potomac River northeast of it, and 3 seconds after the initial explosion, it reached the national park west of it where it will burn every clothing that anyone wear in the park before burning their skin. Most of them will die, and if they survive because they're not outdoor, they will suffer intense third-degree burns at least that needs hospitalization with high chance of amputation. The radiation that the bomb gave will reach more than 1 million people during these first few seconds, and about 90% of those will die, with a lot of them considered as dead when found. It then goes on to destroy everything in its path: school, more park, museum, bridges, everything. The explosion of the bomb moves like it wanted to eradicate everything and whatever we have built. And that is just the first pulse before the blast. Once the light from the bomb travel for a while, the second pulse of the bomb go with a thunderous blast that causes a high pressure wave that moves out from ground zero with a speed faster than the speed of sound. It mows everything down. People will flung into air, their lung and eardrum will burst, destroying even large buildings. If you survive the initial heat wave, the wind will turn everything else left behind, changing the landscape of the area immediately. Every vehicle will be flung away no matter the size. Even a 19-wheeler truck or double-decker tour bus will fly. It's been 10 to 13 seconds since the initial impact, and now the nuclear fireball started to travel upwards at the rate of 70 to 100 meters per second, creating the iconic mushroom clouds. It will then start to suck in objects because of the vacuum that the high pressure wave created. After 60 seconds, the color of the mushroom started to turn white while radioactive fallout started to fall down like rain, blanketing its surrounding. It's been less than 2 minutes and already more than 1 million people is dead. But the bomb has not stopped yet. The heat of the air causes an inferno that burns everything that can be burned in a radius of 24 kilometers. And the fire can travel from place to places, burning everything from 8 to 9 minutes. Survivor that is hidden in between walls and buildings will start to come out, injured and lost. The blast created a localized electromagnetic pulse that cut off radio, internet, and TV, and there's no phone call available. Help will not come for days ahead in such a scenario where another country nuclear had arrived at a country and the survivor will need to survive by themselves. And that's how the book was introduced. The scenario is so detailed only because the US has been preparing and rehearsing for plan of what would happen if nuclear world war started. It's why we started in Pentagon, which is the military strategy building for America, And how this all happens, it will end up with the death of at the very least 2 billion people worldwide. And to know how we got here, the author brings us back to 1960s, when the world population is still just 3 billion people. There was a strategic meeting from the most important people in US military at that time, planning to follow up the use of the nuclear bomb in Japan by using bombs that are thousands of times more powerful than the bomb they dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The plan is to drop 40 or more of those at Moscow, civilians beat them, and we know about this plan thanks to Rubel, who also said at that meeting. In his last moment, he decided to speak on this plan out of guilt of being a part of this genocidal plan. As I said at the start, it's highly unlikely for US to be the first victim of this war if it ever happened because of things like this. The book then goes on to a conversation with Setsuko Dorlo, someone who luckily survived the bombing in Hiroshima when she was 13, and Dr. Michiko Hachiya, a regular doctor. Setsuko will later on become involved with the world movement to ban nuclear weaponry, going into organizations like ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. But at that time, for years, Japan, including the 13 years old Setsuko and Dr. Michiko, are not allowed to say anything about the bomb because US at that time wanted to be the only country who know how powerful this weapon can be in their hand. If they're the only country who have them, even better. That's why the meeting to attack Moscow in 1960 is important to them. After the war in 1945, most of the Manhattan Project in Los Alamos that we've seen in Oppenheimer has scrambled with most of the staff gone. But the US Navy at that time took over the place and kept the project afloat with even more funding. From 2 bombs in 1945, the US have 13 bombs by 1947, 50 by 1948, 170 by 1949, and it keeps increasing that in 1952 there are 841 atomic weapons in US, and by that time other countries are trying to produce more of their own nuclear weapons to compete with the US ever increasing production of nuclear bomb. And as if they have yet to be satisfied with how much destructive they could be, they produce a bomb that is worse than nuclear bomb, thermonuclear bomb or hydrogen bomb, a two-stage bomb where there's a nuclear bomb within a nuclear bomb. Designed by Richard Garwin and dubbed as the Super, if the atomic bomb was designed to kill tens of thousands, then the hydrogen bomb was designed to kill millions if dropped strategically. The first hydrogen bomb built already overpowered the bomb dropped on Hiroshima by 1,000 times more. 1,000 of the Oppenheimer's bomb need to be exploded at the same time to compete with just the prototype build of the hydrogen bomb. And when they tested it on a remote island called the Elugelak Island, the island is gone after the explosion. It's a weapon that is powerful enough to eradicate land, and seeing the destruction it caused, the US produced even more of them, creating 102,000 per year that in 1967 they have 31,255 nuclear bombs. One of them could kill up to 10 million people. What even is the need of 31,000 of them back in 1967 when the population was just 3 billion? To overkill our current 8 billion of population? And that's just the ones from the US. Deterrence seems meaningless when the war is a ticking bomb waiting for the right moment to explode and ruin all of us. And even with this ridiculous amount of bombs, the US is still paranoid enough that they made a plan back in 1960 called SIOP, the Single Integrated Operational Plan that will kill at least over 600 million people of the other side, half of it from the first hour of the explosion, and the rest from over 6 months after the nuclear fallout radiation, which will affect not just their target in Moscow, but also the neighboring countries like China, Russia, Japan, Hungary, Sweden, India, and many other countries. The plan went almost unchallenged except for David M. Shook, the commandant of the US Marine at that time, with no other support, including even Rubel, who told us about the plan on his deathbed. We can almost list this event as one of the many times where we came close to a nuclear war along with the other events, where we were so close to having them, with the most famous one coming from when the Soviets received a false alarm about incoming nuclear missile heading to them, which fortunately was correctly flagged as false, or the nuclear Armageddon would have happened decades ago. The rest of the book will go on to document what would happen during a scenario where the nuclear war will break out in seconds and minutes detail. The radar that goes off warning the incoming ballistic missile, and unlike the usual non-nuclear thousands of missiles that are launched yearly now, this time it will be nuclear or even thermonuclear, including North Korea that like to test their missiles so much that most countries park their satellite near them to have an early warning if they ever shot at their direction. They're also the only country that is still testing nuclear weapons despite how bad its effects are on the environment, just because they wanted to show off that they have nuclear weapons too. And if this all ever happened, all of this nuclear war can end in less than an hour. Once a nuclear is launched, it took them about 26 to 33 minutes to reach across the world, and with through the ones carried by submarines that are closer to the target, it can arrive even faster. And the country who received the attack can and will most likely launch the retaliation in under 15 minutes. If they receive another, they will launch another, since most countries have multiple nuclear missiles at the ready to launch position. And rather for each country to detect this nuclear won't tell them if the missile is directed at them or will it just pass by or fall before it got to them, since the route of the missile is a straight line. So a country that is not targeted by the missile might press the panic button and launch their nuclear too once they realize that there is a nuclear missile going at their direction, even if it's not directed at them. And if a country is decidedly going to be ruined before the 30 minutes when the nuclear hit them, they might decide to use all their nuclear weapon out of spite, and almost every country have hundreds to thousands ready to launch nuclear. So everyone everywhere will be a target in such a case. The day nuclear war started, when mutually assured destruction starts, will also be the day the war ends. We also know from the broad prophet war games the US ran in 1983 that has been redacted, air quote, because most of the pages looks like this. We know that paranoia will ensure that once the nuclear deterrent fails, every nuclear turns into a doomsday device. Once all the bomb that has been launched exploded, all the debris and radioactive will cover the sky, changing our stratosphere, blocking the sun, causing the world to go dark and temperature to drop to below freezing for years that follow the war. Most plants will die without nutrition, and most animals will die without food. Most of us will follow soon, if not because of the lack of food and the extreme weather, then because of the deadly radiation that covers most places. The book managed to show us in minute detail how deadly these weapons are, not for a tool to defend ourselves, but for a tool to destroy all of us. Revert us back to the level of hunter-gatherer where the name of our enemies no longer matter. Pyrrhic victory is a saying used to describe when the winner loses more than the loser during war. But even that is not enough to describe the result of nuclear war, since there is no victor in this, only loser. All of us, including we that don't have any nuclear weaponry at all. There is nothing to gain and everything to lose. The thing the book describes is the worst and the only kind of scenario of nuclear war, and is maybe one of the best non-fiction books I read this year. I give this a 4.75. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.